Hello, welcome to Solo Playthroughs. This is a special episode of Solo Playthroughs, as every 3 months or so I want to put forward a video like this, some sort of top 10 or something else different than the normal solo playthroughs that I put on my channel. Now this month we're going to focus on my favorite game, still my favorite game. It's getting a little bit of challenge from Mage Knight and Spirit Island more and more, but still edges both of them out, just the sheer amount of content. Arkham Horror, the living card game. Now look, I'm going to do a top 10 Spirit Island in the future. That my original plan was to do a top 10 Spirit Island True Solo Spirits this time around. However, with all the new spirits from Jagged Earth, I want to take my time to really digest all 12 of those new spirits before I come out with that list. I can do a lot more justice to a top 10 True Solo Arkham Investigators. And that's why we're here. Couple of guidelines. So I'm not going to do the top 10 straight up. Like, I have some caveats, right? Because if I was going to do the top 10 spirits, the top 10 investigators, not spirits, other game, top 10 investigators, it would be majority mystics and a couple other people. All right, so let's get that off the bat. And I'll talk about that more. So I did go with a balance of classes, of expansions, and chose investigators that I want to play that are representative of the whole of the game, and that's why they're in my top 10. Additionally, I don't have any of the investigators from the Innsmouth Conspiracy on this list because frankly I don't have enough experience with them. I haven't run them through enough campaigns or scenarios to really have a strong opinion there. So we're going to kind of let them off to the side, and we're going to go with the initial investigators, everything including the novellas from the beginning of this game all the way through up, and not including Innsmouth Conspiracy, and I believe that total is 43 investigators. So we have a ton of things that I could be drawing from as this video progresses. So look, sit back. If you're an Arkham player, I think you will love this video. If you're an Arkham player, hasn't ever played True Solo, and wants to know who would be a good person to turn to try the True Solo experience, I am a True Solo purist for the most part. This is going to be a great video for you. So I think you'll like it. Buckle up. Let's go. Number 10. Jenny Barnes. And I guess that shouldn't be too much of a surprise considering like the 75% of my earliest videos on this channel were my Jenny Barnes Forgotten Age campaign. Why do I have two Jenny Barneses? Okay, this was from the novella, so this is the replacement Jenny Barnes, or replacement Jenny Barnes, and this is the original, right? I do think the original is slightly better. I don't think the Green Man medallion that comes with replacement is that helpful, and the Sacrificial Beast could really jam you up. As much as I don't love the Searching for Izzy, I think I'd still go with the regular Jenny Barnes, but honestly, they have the same ability. What makes Jenny Barnes stand out? It's that resource production, right? You will rarely be wanting for resources, and as you saw if you watched my Forgotten Age campaign, now look, I'm the first to admit there's a lot of glare. Audio wasn't great. I was still learning a lot about editing. So those are rough, and I started somewhere with this channel. That's where I started. I think if you're a big Arkham fan, you'll get something out of it, but it's not going to be up to the quality that I want on my channel now. First to admit that. However, if you did watch that campaign, you see how she animates a lot of the rogue cards, because she just always has the resources. She has the resources for Lola Santiago, right? She's always gonna have the resources necessary for, the more expensive weapons, the more expensive events. She's gonna have the resources necessary for her twin guns, where she can put just 1,000,000 pieces of ammo on there. A little bit of exaggeration, but enough that she can get through any given scenario. Look, why is she number 10 though, based on everything I just said? Well, look, the three across the board, that's always going to be a little bit of a problem when it comes to solo, because it's hard to know how to build your deck to make yourself really strong in one thing, whereas kind of you need to augment almost everything in order to have the balanced kind of deck that you're going to need to succeed and to get through. Now again, you'll have the resources, you can buy your way out of a lot of problems like most rogues can, but there's going to be some limitations when you're just 3-3-3-3. All right, what's going to go on there? And you could wind being good in everything but great at nothing. It actually isn't the best place to be for Arkham, even in a true solo scenario. So I do think she is one of the strongest rogues. She doesn't have the problems that like Finn Edwards has, or even I know people love Winifred. Winifred's 1 willpower in a solo game. That's a massive downgrade for her. Like that 1 willpower is going to get you in trouble. Jenny at least doesn't have that problem, and she has the resources that will always be there when you need it for pretty much any card that you might need it for. So Jenny Barnes, number 10. Number 9, And number 9, I think, is going to surprise some people, and that's Zoey. Zoey Samaras. Why? Now, look, I understand that all Guardians are going to have their drawback normally with the intellect, but I prefer Zoey over someone like Roland, for instance, for a couple of reasons. One, it's the resource generation. Similar to Jenny, I mean, every time she engages with a monster, you getting a resource is really nice, right? I mean, and especially if you can get Zoey's Cross out there, you get that resource, you spend the resource, you're just doing damage, just fast actions over and over and over again. And that just gives you so much better action economy. Things like rats, they're just dead, right? Any one health cultist is just dead. So again, it gives you those extra actions, right? I mean, and just one of the things I didn't say about Jenny was like, again, you have access to Leo, and Leo gives you those extra actions. Any investigator that has a built-in way to give you extra actions is going to be a candidate for this top 10, right? And Zoey just has that because of her abilities to give passive damage, saving you so many fight actions. And even if you don't have Zoey's Cross out there and you just have that resource generation, well, at least now I can afford the more expensive Guardian cards in a way that some of the other Guardian class people are going to have a problem. Being resource poor as a Guardian is a very ubiquitous Arkham experience, right? Zoey lessens some of that. Sure, she only has 2 intellect, so you have a bit of a problem when it comes to getting those clues. However, there's enough Guardian cards now with the expansions. I mean, especially there was, we'll get to Nathaniel Cho in a little bit. Spoiler alert. Some of the cards that come in there to help getting those extra clues. You have evidence. So again, you destroy an enemy, you get a clue. I mean, there are ways that you can get the clues. Scene of the crime, you can get 2 clues of an enemy's there. There's just a lot of things that can work in synergy with Zoey, that she can get the clues that she needs, maybe not easily, but she can get them, and she's gonna be good with everything else. Now, don't forget, like her agility is only 2. As solo, you want to kill things as quickly as possible anyway. You're not evading many enemies as it is, but her willpower is 4. Well, 4 gets at 8. A 3 is okay with Jenny. 4 is really good. 4 gets you to that place where you're not proofed against the treacheries that are in the encounter deck, but you're almost there, right? You're in a much better spot in as far as being able to handle most of the treacheries that are going to come your way that are going to test that willpower. You're not nearly as vulnerable with a 4 willpower than a 3 willpower. And then you have the 6 sanity. A lot of the Guardians only have 5 sanity. Now, 5 sanity, you die once, or you take Lita, spoiler alert, you take Lita in the Night of the Zealot campaign. Well, now all of a sudden you have a mental trauma, and all of a sudden that gap you have, I mean, you pull a couple of bad tentacles on treacheries, you're toast. That's 6 instead of 5 on the sanity gives you a lot more playability over the course of a campaign, where you can take a mental trauma, maybe even 2, and still you're fine. You take 2 mental trauma with Roland, I mean, you're really 1 bad treachery card away from being dead. I mean, it's not unusual to get 3 horror here or there if you pull wrong on the wrong treachery. So that's why I go with Zoey. I think she is the 2nd best Guardian. She is the obviously first on my list, and we're going in ascending order. So she's the 2nd best Guardian, I think, in the collection. We will come around to number 1. Already kind of gave that away, but we'll come around to number 1 in a little bit. And that's it. So number 9, Zoey Samaras. Number 8, William Yorick. Now, there are 3 different survivors I considered for this. There's 2 survivors in my top 10. There were 3 different survivors I considered for this number 8 slot. So in theory, I could have had all of them 8, 9, 10 and left off Zoey and Jenny if I wanted to, right? This list is going to be fluid. I mean, you ask me in 2 weeks, I'll probably have some tweaks. But William Yorick, there's just a couple of things that make him stand out. But his ability to dumpster dive, right? His ability to get items back out of the discard pile comes in huge. You have the Gravedigger shovel, fine, you discard it, you get a clue, well, you get it back. You discard it again, you get a clue, you get it back just by using the ability on here. Plus, you bury them deep. It's a pretty easy thing to get out. It's a fast action, and all of a sudden now you kill an enemy. Man, you kill a Night Gaunt, he's out of the deck. He ain't coming back. We're good. You get those extra victory points over the course of a campaign. Now you do, not even every time, you do bury them deep 4 times in a campaign. Well, that's 4 extra experience, and that extra experience can come in huge in a campaign of Arkham Horror, especially when you consider the exile cards that are in the XP cards for the survivor class, right? You want to spend all those XP on exile cards, great, ding, 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 and now you can get those abilities over and over again just by getting that little extra XP because of Bury Them Deep. Meanwhile, the Graveyard Ghouls, whatever, they're an enemy. They're not that awful to kill. They only have 3 health. They're only 3 fight. If you look at his stats, again, the 4 fight is helpful. Obviously, the 3 willpower, again, makes him vulnerable to the encounter card deck. I totally get that. But unlike Jenny, you look at the survivor cards and the skill cards and the ways that you can manipulate things. There are ways that the survivor class has that let you be crafty. There's a way that the survivor class cards let the player feel especially clever, just the way they're built and the synergies that can be created. So I'm kind of okay with that. You'll usually find a way. The 2 willpower, it's a weakness with Zoey. Obviously, it's a weakness with William, except, again, you have your ways of doing it. Look what I found. Oh, failed the test by less than 2. Put that out. You 2 or less, you put that out, you get 2 clues. Look, that's great. And then, again, the Gravedigger Shovel. There's different ways that you, as a survivor class character, can find those clues that you're going to need to advance those acts to get through and to finish off each scenario as they come. So look, as far as survivors go, Yorick's great. Some people are going to be surprised I don't have Ashcan Pete here. Spoiler alert, he's not higher on my list. I think Ashcan Pete's a lot more limited. The nature of Duke's a little more limited. Plus, the way the health works out. I mean, if Duke dies, you're useless as Ashcan Pete, right? So you have a lot less health and sanity to play with than you might think. Meanwhile, you got Yorick coming in with an 8 and a 6, which makes him a little bit more tanky. Speaking of tanky, I think you could have made a strong argument for Stella Clark in this spot. She just came out with the new investigator decks. She is clearly built to be a tank. Really like her. She probably, if I give it a couple more months, I get more plays with her, she probably does take over this role from William Yorick. But from nostalgia stake, from experience that I've had playing this game with Yorick, he just belongs in my top 10 here. The other one I considered is a little off the wall, Calvin Wright. And that would have been more because I just adore playing with him. I love that challenge. But obviously, Calvin Wright has his limitations. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, Calvin Wright, it's probably better for your personal sanity. I love Calvin Wright, so that's probably a window into my lack of personal sanity. But it is what it is. Let's not belabor this too much. Number 8, William Yorick. Number 7. Gave it away. Nathaniel Cho. Man. Look, there's a strong argument for all of the new investigators to be on this list. Jacqueline Clark is really strong, but I'll get to Mystics in a little bit. The Winifred, I think, is that 1 willpower is a no for me as far as a true solo game, because there's just no one there to help you kind of deal with things when the treacheries just to start attacking your willpower too much. And Harvey, whatever. I mean, you're going to see 1 seeker on this list. Again, spoiler alert. And if you've heard me talk about this game before, you might actually be able to guess who that is. However, the Nathaniel's amazing, and Stella's really good, and Jacqueline's really good. But Nathaniel's the only one of the 5 that made it on my list, which I think should tell you something about what I think about this new character. Nathaniel Cho, when you combine, again, his special asset, which is his brother, which allows you to search your deck to get your weapon out. His weakness isn't that bad. It's action intensive because you can only do 1 damage at a time, no matter what else you're doing. But still, he's only a fight of a 2, so his weakness, again, 3 actions, he's gone. That's about right for a personal weakness or a unique weakness. When you combine the gloves and all the new events that came with the investigator deck, and you supplement that by just knowing how to build a good deck and make sure you can get clues and get all those clue cards that come with the Guardian class that I've talked about with Zoey already, woo, like this dude can do some damage, and it's really, really, really nice to see his machine work. So I'm a big fan of Nathaniel Cho. I think he, again, is my favorite by far of the 5 investigators that came in those investigator decks. He makes you rethink the Guardian class in the greatest of ways. You're not looking for weapons anymore except for those gloves. It's really all you need. Man, you get a bunch of those spirit events and Nathaniel's gloves, and the dude is just a force to be reckoned with. In true solo, That's great. I mean, you can deal with any enemy that comes your way and do it quickly because you do that extra damage, right? Every time you play a spirit event, you're doing an extra damage. Think about all those actions that's saving you, and you could use those actions to draw cards, to get resources, to do what you need to do. To if there's unless you're playing like Circle Undone and there's haunted abilities, you use those extra actions on investigation tests that you're maybe not the most likely to pass, but at least you have the actions. We need to get those clues. Let's get them, right? So there's a lot of nice synergy that comes with Nathaniel Cho, and I do think he has jumped to the top of my list of Guardians that I want in a true solo campaign. Now, Mark Harrigan would be one other Guardian that's not on my list that you could make an argument for him, but my problem with Mark is you have that ability to put that damage on Sophie, right? To give him that +2, and it's like you have a bunch of built-in unexpected courages, but there's another side to that, and there's not a lot of cushion there with Mark Harrigan. That 5 sanity is limiting, and once you get to that 5 damage, well, now you have -1 on all your skills, which is brutal. So there's a lot of things that can go wrong with a Mark Harrigan playthrough that, Nathaniel, you don't have to worry about him getting up to 5. He can use the full 9, and he's totally fine until that 9. So he has 8 damage on him, no big deal. You have 8 damage on Mark Harrigan, you're probably going to die, right? Unless you have a bunch of those healing cards, which makes your deck that much more inefficient because you're just loading up your deck with healing cards instead of other things that you might want to do, right? So Nathaniel Cho, really, really strong character, recently added to the Arkham universe. Happy to have him, and that is a easy number 7 for me, Nathaniel Cho. Number 6, Luke, my man in the yellow dress, Robinson. Woo, Luke. let's go here. Like this top 10 again, I could have had 8 mystics. I really could have. And the reason why is, I've been talking about stat lines and how to make up and cover some of the weaknesses of investigators, but you're normally building to strengths. One of the key things that you will learn in deck construction is you're building to make sure that your strengths are strengths more than you're trying to cover up your weaknesses, other than, hey, take all those extra events to get the clues when your intellect sucks. With mystics, your strength is always willpower. You use willpower for everything, or mostly everything, right? I mean, you use your willpower. You can use it for fighting. You can use it to get clues. You can use it to evade. So when you just have to go to those spells and you get the right synergy of spells with the unique abilities of that individual investigator, it's a magical thing. I could have put, again, 8, 9 mystics. And how many are even out? I could have put every single mystic on there. The only mystic I really struggled with true solo was Diana Stanley. And I know a lot of people love Diana Stanley. I find her a lot more difficult true solo than you might think, because with her true solo, you have this weird problem of, do I build her like a guardian or do I build her like a mystic? The rest of the mystics, you're building them like mystics. They're mystics. It is what it is, and they're amazing. So look, Luke Robinson, what puts him over the edge is he starts with that gate box in play, and that gate box, you've heard me talk about how much I love elusive. Elusive is so strong. If I have a character that can take elusive, it can take a level 0 road card or a level 0 splash or a level 0 tactic card, as the case with Mark Harrigan, I am spending 2 XP on elusive. It is a game changer. Action economy in that card is off the chain in a way most cards can't be. If you're engaged to an enemy, you can not only disengage, you can move, and it's all fast. I mean, you're spending 3, 4, 5 actions, depending on where you move to, just on one card, and it only costs 2. It's an amazing card. Luke can do that 3 times a game, and every time you pull the other sign, you get to do it again. It's such a sick ability that it's just a game changer for Luke. His weakness isn't awful. It's basically loss of a round. You take a couple of horror, but again, you have 9 sanity. The 5 physical, 5 damage isn't great, but I'll take 5 damage over 5 horror, 5 sanity any day of the week, right? Because what are the encounter cards normally? They're going to be more likely to attack your sanity than attack your damage. So that's fine. That could work. This is a great character. The ability to play events in neighboring locations that Luke can do is tremendous. There's just so much going on with Luke that when you really figure him out, he's just a super strong mystic. Now, the fact that he's number 6 instead of higher is partially due to just I haven't played with him a ton, and partially due to how much I enjoy playing with some of the other characters more more than it is a statement that, you know, he's not the strongest mystic. I mean, he definitely could be the #1 mystic on this list pretty easily. And I think I'll probably say that about the other 2 mystics that are coming up. So again, I could have put 8 or 9 mystics on my list. I stuck to 3. I was like, these are the best 3 as far as I'm concerned. But Luke is a tremendous investigator, came out of the Dream Eaters cycle, and I am very happy to have him in the collection. So number 6, Luke Robinson. Number 5, Akachi Onyele. Man, Akachi, oh my gosh, again, you get those spells working for you. I mean, she's coming in with a 5 willpower. I mean, you get either the St. Hubert's Key or the what's the Holy Rosary out there. She's already she's all of a sudden at a 6. You get her tarot card out there, the Mystic Tarot card out there. You know, you can get to her 7, 8 with just passive willpower bumps or static willpower bumps. She's super, super strong. She comes into to investigate. I know it's garbage. There's so many good spells there. I mean, Rite of Seeking is like probably one of my least favorite mystic spells. And now that you have other options, now what's the problem with Rite of Seeking? Rite of Seeking, you're always at risk of your turn just ending, right? So you really don't want to use it unless it's your last action for a round. The other problem is it's not efficient, right? When you're playing true solo, most locations only have 1 clue. So why do I have a spell that costs 4 to put out, which is super expensive, and now I'm only really getting half the benefit? And with Akachi, you're usually going to need to do something that's bumping up her willpower or turning her investigate ability into a willpower test, right? So an investigate test into a willpower test, like Rite of Seeking does. So the new spells that are escaping my mind, but like there's one of the one-use event spells or single-use event spells that give you a clue or 2 are fantastic. Drawn to the Flame is fantastic as far as just getting 2 clues on the locations where there are 2 clues there. There are just so many ways where you can just get clues now that don't involve Rite of Seeking, which makes the Mystics class that much more powerful than they already were. So I love Akachi. I love her ability to add charges to come in. Her spells are that much more powerful. You're getting like a discount, right? If Shriveling has 4 uses normal, and with Akachi now it has 5, well, look, I just got a 25% increase in my charges for the same cost. That's tremendous. That's a really good way that, you know, when I put out my spells, even if I pull the tentacles once or twice, I'm gonna get close to full value out of this spell, and that makes my actions more efficient. That makes my resource use more efficient. That makes my ability to succeed in this scenario that much more likely. Now, Akachi's weakness isn't great, but the extra charges that you get, again, it's Angered Spirits, where you need to actually use some of those charges to basically satisfy this angry spirit. Otherwise, you lose some. You take a mental trauma, you take a physical trauma, which especially isn't great for the Mystic class. But since she's a 6, not a 5, that cushion's nice over the course of 8 scenarios. So there are the ways that you can usually handle this weakness. So Akachi's a great, great, great mystic. It really is the first, like one of the first 5 stat investigators to come out after Agnes Baker, and it's not surprising that, again, it's just the mystic class where it's like we're going to load everything up into the willpower stat. And another nice thing that you see with all the expansions is there's a number of interesting ways that you can get yourself that 3rd arcane slot. So if you want to have 2 different combat spells out there and use, you know, when you need 2 damage, use Shriveling. When you only need 1, then you have the other attack spells that you can have, the names of which are escaping me. You can have an investigate spell, you can have an attack spell, and you can have an agility evade spell, right? Those and you use willpower for everything. So the cards have become so much more robust for the Mystics and have just made them into a power class for true solo play. And you can see here, I love playing as Mystics. That was the first class that truly clicked with me. My most epic run through Arkham campaigns was actually with Jim Culver, who's not even on my list. I would probably put him 4th among the Mystics. Not even on my list, but it was just an amazing experience where I really saw for the first time just how powerful this class can be. And every new Mystic investigator that's come out since, with the exception of Diana Stanley, it's the same formula. Use your willpower, get your spells, find a way to get them out, and you can just dominate a scenario in some very cool ways. So, number 5, Akachi Onyele. Number 4, Silas Marsh. Now, I thought Silas Marsh was in Innsmouth Conspiracy. He was, but he's also a novella. It's actually my favorite in the novellas. I really, really enjoyed the writing in that book. It worked for me in a way. Some of the others can be a little cheesy at times, but I like all the novellas, but this was definitely my favorite. So Silas Marsh will go with his replacement cards. I actually haven't played with this version of Silas Marsh. I mean, that's a very fine looking sailor, if I don't mind saying so myself. But we're going to go with this version of Silas Marsh because this is the one I played with. I just love Silas Marsh. There is a level of fun with Silas that I think does tick him up for me, maybe higher on my top 10 than he should be. But that ability to recycle skill cards when you don't need them is so cool. And it makes your deck usage so much more efficient. Now again, it's only once a round, right? But it's once a round or once a phase. It is once a round. But again, if I have unexpected courage, I could put it out. Oh, I don't need that. I'll take that back. That's tremendous. His weakness, Dreams of the Deep, isn't great, but usually you can find a way to get rid of it because you have enough other skill cards. And Nautical Prowess is what a cool dynamic card that this has. The way you can put it out, take it back using your ability, or leave it out there to draw a card. It's just a very, very, very cool card. And I just love playing with Silas Marsh. Now, it does take a little bit of getting used to because it's like a lot of these investigators, there's like one thing because you just get into a rhythm. You play this game enough, you just want to kind of run through the steps. Now, every test with Silas, it's like you commit a card, then you have to kind of take a hitch, do the math. Do I want to hit this back or not? And then go from there. So that does take a little bit of getting used to. But once you get that pattern down, you trained yourself how to play with Silas, again, you're making so much more use of your deck. I mean, say you use that ability, 50% of the time, 25% of the time, whatever it is, that's a ton more icons that you've been able to commit to skill tests over the course of a scenario than normal, right? And that just makes your deck that much more powerful, that much better, that much more likely to be able for you to have what you need to succeed. Plus, again, you get the four agility, that 4 combat. Enemies are rarely a problem with Silas. The question is, can you get the clues? And as I talked about William Yorick, yes, right? There's enough cards that you can take when you're Silas that are going to get you those clues, especially when you can take all skill cards that are in the game, and then you can take them back into your hand if you just don't need the icon bumps that they give you, right? So very, very cool. He's a really dynamic investigator, one of my favorite gaming experiences in this game. And I'm really excited to get to him when I think he would be scenario 7 or 8 when I do that Dunwich campaign, which I'm planning to start next month. So Silas Marsh, he's a good one. Really glad to have him in the collection, and a more than worthy number 4 on this top 10. Number 3, we're back to the last Mystic. All right, so number 3, Marie Lambeau. Now, I got her sleeved up just like I had Zoey sleeved up. I'm actually doing a 2-person campaign with my wife through Carcosa, where I'm playing Marie Lambeau and Sarah's playing Zoey Samaras. So, look, Marie is great. She's great. I mean, and the nice thing about Marie, she has a built-in way to get those extra actions, right? Once a round, you can spend a spell, you get that additional, you can use an additional action only on a spell card, and that includes spell events, just as much as it includes assets that are spells and using a charge. Then you have her special unique card, which is basically saying when the agenda would advance, it doesn't. Oh, it's so huge. I mean, you team this up with Blood Pact. I mean, you could be like, boom, 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 put a bunch of Doom on Blood Pact. Then you get around to the agenda. You check the agenda threshold. Oh, the Doom threshold. Oh, we don't advance anyway because I have this. And then you go back another round of Blood Pact. There's just the synergies with the Mystic cards, and Marie and how she works is awesome. Now, her weakness can be a little bit brutal. Baron Samedi, the fact that he takes up an ally slot, you do have to be careful. I don't always take charisma anymore. I just find it more interesting when I don't, unless I'm like Leo and I just want 17 allies in play. But when I do have, when the unique weakness of an asset or of an investigator is an ally and does take the ally slot, I think you have to take that charisma, right? You have to protect yourself from being forced to throw away cards that you spent good resources for, especially when you are playing the Mystic class. And the Mystic class, like the Guardian class, one of the big problems with the Mystic class is that their cards cost a lot of resources. So make sure you're not wasting them. So you do have to spend 3 XP, get charisma, kind of proof yourself against this jerk. But dealing with him once he's out, it's not awful. You usually can get him discarded and prevent that extra damage. But use that extra damage if you're dealing with enemies quickly because you have the right spells, or you're evading them, and you're not taking the damage anyway. It's usually not a huge deal anyway. So love Marie. That again, the extra action. It's like a built-in Leo DeLuca. She's fantastic, and the spell cards keep getting better and better with all the expansions. So cannot recommend Marie Lambeau enough. It's close again with all the top 3 mystics. You could also throw Father Mateo in here. You can throw again Jim Culver. I love in here. You could have her, Akachi, or Luke in any order that you want. But for me, my money, my favorite mystic, if I really needed to win a scenario and I want to build a deck for it, I'm going to take Marie Lambeau. So number 3, Marie Lambeau. Number 2, Tony Morgan. This guy is so great. Tony Morgan, first of all, you get the 5 fight, right? Enemies, not a problem. Then you have that 3 intellect, which makes him viable at a lot of locations, especially when you only need 1 clue often when you're true solo, right? Then you have the rogueness, where he has a built-in resource generation when it comes to the bounties. I love the bounty system. Like, look, thematically, it's a little weird. Why is Tony Morgan running around in all these locations, but somehow he's like killing these other people, even though he's trying to like do these other things? Whatever. It is what it is. It works for me. Look, this game, you can only take the theme so far, and you just need to have fun with it, right? And Tony for me is a super, super fun. Like, let me put that bounty on them and go get that guy, and you get the advantage of the extra fight if you're using the long colts, the ability when you get that magical ability to put 2 long colts out for the price of 1 when they're both in your hand is so cool. He's just a really, really cool, well-rounded investigator. And Tony's quarry, I mean, okay, fine. It's like an Ancient Evils. You lose a round. I don't think I've ever went and engaged Tony's quarry and defeated it. I just don't. All right, I have 1 less round. You expect when you play with Tony Morgan, you're just going to have 1 less round, and this thing's just going to sit there and do absolutely nothing. And it is what it is. It's like you pulled an Ancient Evils. There's nothing else you can do about it. Oh, well, right? Just want to make sure you're not doing card draws. A lot of card draws if you're 1 away from the agenda advancing. There's ways where you can like really minimize the impact of Tony's quarry over the course of a campaign. But look, Tony Morgan, again, he's super, super strong. His 2 willpower, does put me in that place where I'm like kind of backtracking a little bit from, 2 willpower is obviously super concerning, right? But it's not the 1 willpower of Finn Edwards, and it's not the 1 willpower of Winifred Habermock. So 2 has a little bit more play. You play a Guts, now you're up to 4 willpower. And then if you can get, Hard Knocks out there, or one of those cards where you can spend the resources you have to get yourself those boosts to your willpower value, super, super strong. And usually with Tony, you'll have the money. It's not going to be a problem. Or minimum, you'll have the money to get all your horror soaks that you're going to need to make sure that you survive the campaign or survive each scenario and don't take that horror. Because again, you take 1 mental trauma when you're Tony Morgan, well, now all of a sudden you only have a cushion of 4, and in that 4th one, you're dead. So that's a big problem when it comes to any of the 5 sanity investigators. But Tony Morgan, like Silas Marsh, who again is also only a 5, has abilities and ways through his class cards, through his abilities, to get the rest of it to come together in a way that he can minimize the risk of only having the 5 sanity and the 2 willpower. And again, I should have talked about this with Silas, because it's the same setup, right? I think that's like the go-to for Arkham, where it's like, hey, this investigator is really strong, so how can we kind of nerf it? Well, we're going to nerf it by giving it 2 sanity, 2 willpower and 5 sanity. Figure it out, right? And I think both of those characters, against Silas and Tony, have ways specific to their class, specific to their special abilities, to do just that. With Silas, it's manipulating your skill cards, and with Tony, it's going to be having the resources and doing everything else well, right? Because Tony at least is a 3 on intellect, which makes him more viable for clue getting than Silas, that you'll be able to overcome the weakness in a way that's going to give you a decent win rate. So Tony, love playing with Tony. I think I have a Tony Morgan Excelsior Hotel scenario that I filmed a while ago. Still, again, a lot of glare. It was kind of one of my earliest videos, but definitely worth checking out if you want to see Tony Morgan in action. Big fan of Tony Morgan, and again, he also came with the Dream Eaters cycle. So that's it. Number 2, Tony Morgan, and number 1. Now, I indicated before that I had another Seeker, or I had one Seeker on this list, and I think you probably can guess it. You might. I'm thinking people are guessing it's one of 2 different people, and I'm just gonna get right to it. Number 1 for me is Ursula Downs, not Joe Diamond. And the reason why not Joe Diamond is, like, Diamond's strong in a lot of things, but that willpower just gets him, right? And unlike Silas and unlike Tony, I don't think the Seeker cards are good enough to help Joe Diamond overcome the problems of having such a low willpower. Whereas Ursula, oh, is so strong, especially in Forgotten Age, right? Widely considered the hardest campaign, although Dream Eater A has to be up there from a true. I mean, Dream Eater A from a true solo standpoint is just unplayable. So that's a big problem, and I hope they really fix that with the next errata that's about to come out, or a minimum with the Return to, whenever the heck that comes out. But that's another story. I mean, I could rant about that for a long time, how disappointing I found that campaign. But Ursula in Forgotten Age, I mean, she could breeze through Forgotten Age. She's up to the task in any campaign, and I did take her through Dream Eaters A, and had a fairly amazing deck and almost was able to pull it off, even with only 3 scenarios worth of XP. And I didn't get any XP in the first scenario because I did the alternate way to do that, and I was on point with that one. So I really only had 2 scenarios worth of XP, and I still had just a ridiculous deck. When you use Ursula with Ellie Horowitz, and you can get that relic thing working for you, and you get the ornate bow, and that's going to give you a really nice way to combat with some chunk damage. But for the most part, you're just able to evade so many enemies so efficiently because you have that 4 agility. And then, yeah, that takes a lot of actions, but that built-in Leo DeLuca with Ursula, where you move to a new location and now you can do an investigate action. Oh, that's huge. And most of the time solo, you're going to a lot of new locations, right? You have to move around the board, and you're going to want to use that free investigate action to get that clue. And she's coming in at a 4 intellect, and she's a Seeker, so she'll probably have that boosted up to a 5 or a 6 or a 7, depending on what assets and allies that you took. Now look, Jake Williams, her unique asset, he's all right. I mean, I might take charisma with Ursula. I might not. I'm more likely to not. And then you just have him as, he had an intellect icon in the wild. Easy to toss that in, or he can just be used as a soak. Obviously, her weakness is a little annoying. I don't like the weaknesses, the unique weaknesses that have to keep getting shuffled in your deck after certain things are done. Don't love. I mean, that's one of the reasons Safina Rousseau is not on my list. And I know people adore her and think she's super strong. I think her weakness from a true solo standpoint is just crushing to her, and just the way that you have your strongest events, and all of a sudden, like, your events just start disappearing over the course of a scenario, and then near the end you're taking all that extra damage, or horror, whatever it is. It's not workable for me true solo enough that's why Rousseau is not on my top 10. Now look, Ursula's her weakness can come back a few times, but look, she's coming in at a 7 sanity. She's going to have some allies. She can usually soak that up. And if you have, like, I'll use some of those Seeker cards that allow you to search through your deck to make sure you have what you need when you need to have it. It also lessens the blow of, pulling this instead of another card that you might need multiple times in a scenario. So I just think Ursula is the whole package. The first scenario might be a little tough, right? Until you start getting some XP in your deck and you start getting some more enhanced abilities to overcome enemies. But even that, you're coming in at least with a 4 agility. So you can spend that first scenario usually evading what you need to evade enough that you can do everything else well enough that you're going to be able to succeed. The 3 willpower, again, wish it was a 4, but it works. You have enough cards that you'll be able to kind of overcome that. And you're not like someone with a 5 sanity, where 1 bad treachery is all of a sudden 60% of your sanity. Here you have a little bit more cushion, you have a little bit more play, I joke with my friends when I say the goddess, when I talk about Arkham Horror, they know I'm talking about Ursula Downs. So that is it. That is my Arkham Horror top 10. So I just finished up a Return to the Night of the Zealot campaign, and I played with 3 Guardians. So I started with Replacement Roland. We went to Zoey Samaras. We went to Mark Harrigan. You can check that out on my page. I have everything listed in playlist. And then I will be starting in a couple of weeks here, 3 or 4 weeks. I'm going to be starting a live. It's all live. My Arkham stuff is all live these days. It's going to be a live Return to Dunwich campaign, and I will probably do one of the recommended variants where I will take the original treacheries and then the new treachery sets, new encounter sets, I should say, and I will just kind of mix them, and I'll just take the right number. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, just tune in. You'll get a chance to see how I play it. I think it just adds a bit more variety and a bit more intrigue to the different campaigns for me. So I'm going to go with the Survivor class. We're going to start with in scenario 1 with Wendy, and then we're going to go to our friend our friend Ashcan. Then we're going to go to William from the Carcosa, and we're just going to go in the order of the different cycles. We'll get to Calvin. You know how much I've raved and love him already. So don't forget. I mean, Rita Sajjan, interesting. Rita Hathaway is Sajjan. Not Rita. Patrice Hathaway is Sajjan, interesting. Interesting investigator, and we'll just kind of follow along with the story as we go, and just have a different survivor take over from scenario to scenario. It worked really well with Return to the Night of the Zealot. I think it will work even better with the Survivor class. Really, really love that class, and I love that campaign. I mean, all the new campaigns that come out, I've gone back to Dunwich a few times, and it still stands the test of time. Even as new mechanics are introduced, there's something refreshing about it, going back to the original full campaign. And now, of course, you are going back with much stronger decks because of the way the card pool has just blown up since then. But still, when you build those decks, 50 to 75% of those cards are still going to be the originals, right? I mean, there are cards that are not replaceable, no matter how many unique riffs they come out on them with all the new cycles. So really, really excited about that. Definitely tune in. And then in 3 months, I will have my top 10 Spirit Island spirits on the channel. Promise this time that's going to be the next special that I do. So look out for that in January. Till then, any questions, comments, epiphanies, please put them in the comment section below. And you can go on my Patreon page. I have a public posting. I have a little bit of like a weekly blog on there just for patrons only. But I do have one public posting every month in which I will post at the end of the month, where it will go through the exact schedule for what's the next month, and I'll give a little bit of a sneak peek for the month after that. So you can check that out, see what's coming up. Make sure you don't miss anything you want to see. As always, I appreciate the likes, the comments, anything that people do to support this channel as I continue to grow it and it gets bigger and bigger. So thanks again. Happy gaming.